name in show business came out for Kamala Harris, from Oprah to Clooney to Beyonce, and she lost every swing state. A survey of Ohio voters found Taylor Swift's endorsement actually had a negative impact, with 24% saying it made them less enthusiastic about her as a candidate. Celebrities aren't helping, and why would they? In a country where the big issue now is affordability, outside of, Springsteen and a few others, celebrities don't strike people as relatable or in touch. And what their activism mostly activates is eye rolls.
Bill Maher is bashing his own political party, the Democratic Party, for engaging in celebrity politics. According to Maher, the new strategy to involve celebrities in a bid to win the 2028 elections isn't working, and he gave his reasons. Maher's rant was unapologetic, fiery, and straight to the point, and we've got all the clips. So hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's begin.
Ours, they're not just like us. They're just not. They fly private. They have 5 houses all over the world. They give their kids ridiculous names. They make candles that smell like their vagina. They wear crazy amounts of jewelry. They buy castles. They buy towns. They buy islands. They have Shark Tank.
Maher argues that the DNC's obsession with celebrity endorsements is fundamentally flawed because celebrities simply aren't living the same reality as ordinary Americans. These are people insulated by wealth, fame, and privilege, spending lavishly while the average voter worries about rent, groceries, and gas prices. In Maher's view, that massive disconnect makes celebrities terrible messengers for a party that claims to champion working people. They don't stand in checkout lines, stress over medical bills, or feel the sting of inflation the way normal folks do. So when they lecture voters about what's best for the country, it comes off as tone deaf rather than inspiring. Maher suggests that instead of swaying voters, celebrity politics often backfires, reinforcing the idea that Democrats are out of touch with everyday struggles. Rather than convincing skeptical Americans, these endorsements can feel like rich elites talking down to the public, weakening the party's message instead of strengthening.
They show up 3 hours late for their own concerts and people still go. Please, it's okay. You're stars. We like you for who you are. Insulated divas whose talent allows you to pig out on the finer things in life because we all need something to aspire to. But being talented, which you are, isn't the same as knowing things or having the credibility to advise people on their politics.
Maher really drops the hammer. He acknowledges that celebrities are undeniably talented at what they do, but talent on a movie set or a concert stage doesn't magically turn someone into a subject matter expert on politics, economics, or public policy. Being able to memorize lines, play a role convincingly, or sell out arenas doesn't mean you understand the daily struggles of voters or the complexities of governing a country. Maher points out that audiences often blur the line between performance and reality, mistaking on-screen authority for real-world wisdom. Actors can portray presidents, activists, or working-class heroes, but once the cameras stop rolling, those characters disappear. The problem, Maher argues, is that politics starts treating performers as if they actually are the roles they play. That illusion may work in Hollywood, but in the real world, it leads to shallow messaging, misplaced trust, and a political conversation built more on fame than fact.
Rail against privilege, but you avail yourself of the greatest privilege of all, to remain clueless. Dave Chappelle lashed out at me last month because I called him out for saying there was more free speech in Saudi Arabia than here. Well, I was right. What he said was stupid. America has many problems, including free speech issues on both left and right, but we're real different than Saudi Arabia. If you don't believe me, try opening a lesbian art gallery there.
Maher goes even further, flat out blasting celebrities for lecturing the public on politics when, in his view, many of them are painfully uninformed. He argues that fame has created a bubble so thick that most celebrities barely understand what's happening beyond Hollywood, let alone across the country or the world. Surrounded by yes men, publicists, and luxury, they mistake applause for insight. Maher says this disconnect leads to wildly ignorant takes being delivered delivered with total confidence. To drive the point home, he cites comedian Dave Chappelle, who once claimed there was more free speech in Saudi Arabia than in the United States. For Maher, that statement perfectly captures the problem. Bold political opinions built on shaky facts. When celebrities speak, people listen, but Maher warns that listening doesn't mean learning. Instead of clarifying reality, celebrity commentary often distorts it, leaving audiences more misinformed than
know about the real world. So Democrats, it's great you have all the big celebs, but people see them as an arm of the Democratic Party, which they already suspect for lacking common sense. I know the celebrities mean well, and we thank them for having their heart in the right place, but just do you. Do what you do so well. Use your extraordinary talents for the noble cause of bringing relief from the problems that ribbons and pins can't fix. I know it's very important to you that you feel that you're making a difference, so let me assure you, you are. You're making independents vote
To Maher, independents can smell the inauthenticity from a mile away. They recognize that many celebrity endorsements aren't grounded in real-world experience, but in performative virtue signaling designed to curry favor with Democratic elites. To these voters, it feels less like genuine concern and more like wealthy stars chasing applause and social approval. Maher argues that this dynamic makes Democrats look like flashy show-offs rather than a party seriously invested in solving everyday problems. Instead of connecting with ordinary Americans, the party appears obsessed with image, status, and Hollywood validation. That perception, Maher says, is toxic with independents who value sincerity over spectacle. When voters feel talked down to by people who've never shared their struggles, resentment builds quickly. And in that vacuum, Republicans step in, presenting themselves as more grounded and relatable, even if the policies are debatable. In Maher's view, it's this cultural disconnect, not just policy disagreements, that steadily pushes independents away from Democrats and toward Republican candidates.
photo collage of some of your favorite stars and politicians who speak about the need to reduce our carbon footprint, but who are always on private planes. That's right, all of them. If you don't see a celebrity's picture here, it's because we weren't allowed to use it. Or their series got canceled. But all the environmentalists of Hollywood and Washington do it. Their position on climate change is, we must do more to stop pouring carbon into the air, except for me when I want to go somewhere and then I take a private.
Maher then turns his fire on what he sees as blatant celebrity hypocrisy, using environmentalism as the clearest example. He points out that many celebrities loudly brand themselves as climate warriors, lecturing the public about carbon footprints and personal responsibility. Yet the moment it's convenient, they hop on private jets, one of the most carbon-intensive ways to travel. To Maher, that contradiction is impossible to ignore. It sends a message that the rules are for everyone else, not for the wealthy and famous. In his view, this double standard completely destroys credibility. If you don't live by the values you promote, why should anyone take your lectures seriously? Maher argues that this hypocrisy deepens the disconnect between celebrities and ordinary Americans who can't afford private planes and already feel overburdened. Instead of inspiring change, these contradictions breed resentment, reinforcing the belief that celebrity activism is more about image than genuine sacrifice or accountability.
And Greta, that's who walks the walk. Everyone else is full of shit, and I'm done being full of shit. I can take being a bad environmentalist because almost all of us are, but I can't take being a hypocrite. Now, I always justified renting a plane because I only used it for work and literally could not get to most of my stand-up gigs on time any other way. How do you think I did it all those years? I said goodnight here at 8 p.m. and was on stage in Vegas at 10. But I don't need to do stand-up, like tomorrow night in Albuquerque.
Maher does offer a small concession. He admits that there are moments when celebrities genuinely need to be in multiple places on tight schedules, and in those cases, private jets might be understandable. But he draws a hard line there. Not every trip is an emergency, and not every journey requires a luxury aircraft. In fact, many of these trips could easily be done on commercial flights or even by car. Yet, time and again, celebrities still choose to fly private simply because they can. To Maher, that choice exposes the real issue: convenience over conviction. If someone is truly serious about environmental responsibility, they would make occasional sacrifices, even minor ones. Instead, these repeated private flights reveal that the activism often stops where personal comfort begins. Maher argues that this pattern reinforces public cynicism, making celebrity environmentalism look less like a moral stance and more like a branding exercise detached from real-world accountability.
Good fly commercial. Why don't they? Ask anyone who tried to get home for Christmas last year. And don't tell me the younger generation is better. They're not. They're just poorer. They're actually worse. This is who they look up to. The family where everyone has their own private jet. And kids love Bitcoin, which, to determine the value of, takes an amount of computer processing that uses more electricity than some whole countries. Kids could have projected that, but they didn't. They love it. Why? Because they want to be rich. Why? So they can fly private.
Maher then shifts his focus to the younger generation, taking aim at what he sees as performative environmentalism. He argues that many young activists loudly brand themselves as protectors of the planet, not necessarily because they live more sustainably, but because they simply don't have the money to engage in high-emission luxuries like private jets. In Maher's view, this moral posturing is cheap when it's driven by financial limits rather than real sacrifice. He adds that the same generation often embraces trends that quietly undermine their environmental claims. One example he highlights is Bitcoin mining, an energy-hungry industry that consumes massive amounts of electricity and leaves a sizable carbon footprint. Maher's point isn't to single out young people, but to expose the inconsistency. You can't claim the moral high ground on climate issues while enthusiastically supporting practices that harm the environment. For Maher, it's another case of rhetoric outpacing reality, regardless of age.
No one can resist it. John Kerry is our climate czar, and he uses a private jet. It's like if the Secretary of Homeland Security smuggled drugs in his body. People take jets to environmental conferences. If you could run TED Talks on hypocrisy.
Maher makes it clear that his criticism doesn't stop with Hollywood. He also takes direct aim at politicians who preach lofty ideals but fail to walk the talk. In his view, the problem runs deeper than celebrity hypocrisy. It's baked into the political class itself. That's why, Maher argues, Democrats are facing a double credibility crisis. On one side, celebrities loudly push moral causes while living in ways that contradict their messaging. On the other, politicians echo those same talking points without demonstrating real honesty or consistency in their own actions. The result is a party that looks disconnected, insincere, and increasingly untrustworthy to everyday voters. Maher suggests that when words and actions don't align, people stop listening altogether. Voters don't just want slogans or virtue signals, they want proof. And until Democrats confront both sides of this problem, Hollywood hypocrisy and political dishonesty, Maher believes their message will continue to ring hollow.
But sorry, not sorry. I tried to do my part for the environment. I never had kids. The one thing worse for the planet than private jets. It's true, because then they have kids. I had the first generation Prius in 2001. It looked like a Tylenol gel cap. I was always handing my keys to valets who were driving a better car than me. I had the first Tesla in 2010. And honestly, both these cars sucked.
Taken together, Maher's critique paints a damaging picture for the Democratic Party. He argues that celebrity-driven politics has become a liability, not an asset, exposing a deep disconnect between elite voices and everyday Americans. When celebrities preach values they don't live by, and politicians repeat those messages without backing them up with honest action, trust collapses. Voters, especially independents, see through the performance and resent being lectured by people who don't share their struggles. Maher's message is blunt. Politics can't be run like an awards show. Flash, fame, and moral posturing don't put food on the table or lower gas prices. Authenticity does. Until Democrats move away from Hollywood validation and focus on real-world credibility, they'll continue bleeding support to Republicans who present themselves as more grounded and relatable. In Maher's view, the fix isn't complicated. It just requires the party to stop performing, start listening, and actually live the values it claims to represent. And on this note, we draw the curtains on today's video. If you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next.